from a small needle making company and then moving into making bicycles. The first Royal Enfield was manufactured in 1901, and as time passed by, the first bullet was born in 1932, which then gave way of founding the Royal Enfield Company in 1955. We saw many classics being built during this era, but as and when the Indian motorcycling crowd moved into adventure touring, there came the Himalayan.
Right, so back in 2016 is when Royal Enfield launched the very first Himalayan, the BS3 variant of it. It did a fantastic job in the adventure touring, your road touring, and even for your daily city commutes. Being budget friendly, it was completely accessible for all of us. It did a fantastic job in this department. But as and when time passed by and people started clocking a lot more kilometers on the motorcycle, is when the reliability issues started kicking in. That's when the bike faded down a little bit, and the other bikes, your SD Adventure, the X-Pulse, the ADV 390 started taking over. But Royal Enfield didn't leave it right there. They did a few tweaks to the BS6 variant, what you see here. So let's talk about what changes have been made on this bike and how has it helped us ride this 10,000 kilometers. It's been a fantastic experience riding this bike so far. So let's have a complete deep look at the motorcycle. So the whole idea of you buying a Royal Enfield Himalayan is for you to take it off-road, take it to unexplored places, the kind of place where we are shooting right now. It's a fantastic machine to throw around, to play around. And what can I say about this motorcycle? The suspension setup is definitely one of the best in this segment you can get when you compare it to your ADV, the X-Pulse, and even the SD Adventure. They come in different categories of motorcycles. You really cannot compare the performance part. But let's talk about the big, massive suspension that you have up front that really, smoothens out all your undulations in your off-road and even when you're riding in the city with a bad potholes. Coupled with the 21-inch wheels, they do a fantastic job. In terms of comfort, we've really not had much complaints about, riding this bike long distance. In terms of comfort, it's been absolutely fantastic. Get yourself, a set of handlebar risers and that would do the job. Because if you're someone who's a little tall, say 5'8" and above, you would need a set of handlebar risers. But when you look at the overall styling of the bike, it looks neat, it looks small, it looks compact. But you can't get fooled by that, right? Because weighing in at 199 kilos, that's quite a lot of weight. Now, the only reason the BS6 variant is a lot heavier than the older motorcycle is because of the reinforced chassis that you get. With 24 horses and 32 Newton meters of torque, well, the bike, it does feel a lot for this bike. But again, like I said, once you swing your leg over this machine, this is when you feel 199 kilos. It's such a shame that, Royal Enfield has not been able to bring the weight down a little bit, because this is where it dilutes your riding skills and your techniques, in the off-road, tackling those technical situations. And that is also where your gearbox, the gearbox on the Royal Enfield Himalayan is quite clunky. It's not the best you can work with, and it really does not have the feedback that you need. The clutch is quite heavy because you would want the clutch to be nice and light when you're belting the bike around in the trails. You want it to be nice and light on your wrist. But that's not the case with the Himalayan here. Maybe an addition of a slipper clutch would have been a fantastic feature on this motorcycle, because the clutch and the gearbox is not a very happy place to be working around on this motorcycle. Now, getting back into the comfort department and the ergonomics, like we spoke about getting risers and stuff like that, that's pretty much what you would need to enjoy this motorcycle, apart from the overall performance you can extract out of it. Talking about performance, we see a lot of people using it on the highways. In fact, We've ridden this bike a lot on the highways. I think in the last 10,000 kilometers, 70 to 80% of riding this bike has been on the highway. It's been fantastic. The bike hasn't broken down. We've had a couple of punctures, but yeah, with a set of tube tires, that's what you expect. But talking about performance on the highway, somewhere between 80 to 100 is where the motorcycle is really, really happy. It's got really tractable, torque available throughout the rev range, but you have to ensure you're a little above that 2000 RPM to keep the motorcycle in action. Anything below that, well, it's not a very happy place to be in. And when you're talking about cruising on the highway, again, when we were riding down to this location, we were riding 2 up and we had a little bit of luggage on the bike with the camera equipment and stuff like that. The bike was easily able to cruise at 100, 110. But the minute you want to whack it and you want to see 120 or maybe 125, you're asking too much out of this motorcycle. This is where, all the weight comes into, picture, where if the motorcycle weighed a little lesser, maybe about 10, 15 kilos lesser, it would have been a fantastic machine even on the highways. But if you're okay cruising on the highways at 100, 110, you have that slight pinch of power to do those quick overtakes, which works like a charm. But yeah, highway power, not the very best, but in this segment, it does a decent job. Right, so many of us would be using this bike for touring, right? Those long distance. You want to cover 500, 600 or maybe even 1000 kilometers a day. The luggage setup on this motorcycle, you would want to look at something really light because the luggage options that Royal Enfield give you, they're quite good. They're easy to work with, they're easy to mount, easy to take off, completely waterproof as well, right? But having spoken about the weight of the motorcycle, you wouldn't want to have those big metal boxes, your metal top box, because you're adding more load to the bike and that can really hamper your riding on the highway and maybe even the handling for that matter. So what you see here are the GV GRT Canyon bags. They work like a charm. These are soft panniers where you would need the GV specific Himalayan pannier rack to mount these bags. We've been using them, tried and tested. They work brilliantly, completely waterproof as well. So if you want to have a look at those bags, we've dropped a review on that. Check out this I button here. You'll have a complete information on these bags. Now, getting on to, loading up your motorcycle. The Himalayan is a motorcycle that you really cannot, kit it up to the T. If you ask me why, the suspension, while I said it was absolutely great, they're completely non-adjustable. While the rear gets preload, the front gets absolutely nothing. But look at the flip side. You get preload adjustment at the rear. It's really impossible for you to tweak the preload on this motorcycle because it's placed in such a tight spot that you would actually have to go to the Royal Enfield service center to work on the preload on the motorcycle. It's quite surprising that, there are quite a few bikes that actually fall in this segment. If you look at even the X-Pulse 200, same problem. They give you the option to play with the preload and even the compression, but the way you access it, it's really not accessible in places like this where you would need it the most. Yes, when you compare it with the BS3 and the BS6, nothing much has changed in the performance department. But when you look at the overall styling, it remains a little untouched as well. While they've given you fresh new colors like the one you see here, it looks really nice and classy. There were a couple of major things that they actually did. If you look at the console, your cockpit view, the BS6 variant, when they launched it, had the navigation device that was powered by Google, right? It worked well, but unfortunately, due to the shortage of chips, they had to remove that device and leave it empty as of now. So this particular bike, this is a 2022 variant. It doesn't have that, but it still gets the taller and wider windscreen, which works slightly better than the older one, which is shorter and a little narrow. Getting a little into the bike next to the petrol tank is where you see these two frames that used to hinder a lot in the older motorcycles, especially when you're saddling on the motorcycle, it used to hurt your knees, right? So they have worked on a new design and they've moved that frame a little ahead, and that works absolutely fine. We've not had any problems with that. And last but not the least, they've also looked at a slightly shorter and a bigger tail rack to accommodate luggage as well. But what we've got here is a nice 43-litre GV top box that weighs about 2.5 kilos and can carry about 5 to 6 kilos of load inside the box. Just getting into the overall accessories that we put on this motorcycle, I don't think any one of us is really happy with a stock motorcycle, right? So what we've done to this motorcycle, really simple and tastefully done. Himalayan here, we've added a set of buckbusters for that extra protection, and you also have the GV engine guard. Why not the Royal Enfield engine guard? Because they're quite heavy, they're quite big, and they protrude from the bike quite a bit. This GV guard has actually saved the crank and the tank quite a few times. We've had a couple of falls, and they do a fantastic job, while they also look really, really stylish. Now, talking about the lighting department, while these come with the old conventional headlights, the big halogen headlights, they still don't have the throw and the power output. So which is why we've got a set of Baja Squadron Sports. They work fantastic. You can have your filters. Say it's raining, you're riding in the fog, you can have the yellow filters as well, like what you see here. Getting into the ergonomics department, we've swapped the OEM mirrors with the double take adventure mirrors. Again, they work fantastic. They have a huge wide spread of view, and you can actually fold them as well when you're doing your off-road trails in case you don't want to damage them. Now, getting into the performance, yes, like we were not really happy with the performance of the motorcycle, we've put in the FuelX Pro variant fuel controller from Race Dynamics and coupled it up with the BMC stock replacement filter with a Power Age exhaust. So all of this sandwiched together has actually transformed this Himalayan by at least 20-30%. I can clearly tell you that, because when I rode a stock Himalayan and when I've ridden this for the last few 100 kilometers, there is a massive difference the way the power is delivered. It's really nice and linear, at the same time very tractable and quite punchy. Now, why the exhaust? Well, the stock Himalayan exhaust, I guess, is one of the best sounding single cylinders that you can buy. But to get the maximum out of the bike, we went with the free flow exhaust. You still hold the OEM header pipe. We've just changed the slip-on. It's not too loud. It's somewhere in between, the stock exhaust, but a lot more bassier.
While you can enjoy this bike, so much in the trails and places like this, the unexplored places, it's really difficult to turn the ABS off. It just doesn't work. Although they have a button provided, it just doesn't work. And when it comes to the braking department, although this is not a very fast bike to ride on the highway, but when you need those brakes, the bite is just not there. We've tried the EBC brake pads. We have a few other people running the Brembo brake pads, but the feel and the bite of the front brake just isn't there. It feels really woody. So yeah, braking department, a big letdown.
So getting into the overall maintenance of the bike, that's where it boils down, right? Buying a motorcycle is no big deal, but maintaining one is the big deal. So maintaining a Royal Enfield Himalayan is a no-brainer. It's quite reasonable to get it serviced. The best part is you're riding anywhere around the world, you have parts for this motorcycle. That's how easily accessible the motorcycle parts are for the Royal Enfield Himalayan. So a normal service would cost you somewhere between 5,000 to 6,000 rupees. It can go up, it can go down depending on the consumables that you would use on the motorcycle. But yeah, man, apart from that, this is quite a good tourer. Given the opportunity, I would maybe take this out for a couple of weeks and clock in a few thousand kilometers, because this motorcycle, like what people tell you, it's not about the motorcycle, it's the emotion that Royal Enfield creates within the rider. So yeah, maybe in the next video you might see me talking about a 5,000 or maybe a 10,000 kilometer review. But all in all, this is a fantastic machine for the money you pay. My name is Ajit. I'll see you guys in the next one.